Hey, fellow Tarnished. How would you feel about, I don't know, some Elden Ring DLC?
The prophecy is true.
Yes, that was patch 1.07 flying by. And the reason it was is because with this update, with this game-changing injection of newness, well, there was something secret, something hidden, slipped under the table. Which is a weird way to metaphor this now that I think about it. But what it was is some extra game files now put into Elden Ring of significant importance. And yes, I wouldn't bust out significant importance lightly. And I know what you're thinking. Don't give me hope. But there is genuine reason to be very excited right now, or at least very hopeful for the future and Elden Ring's evolution into something more. So the TLDR of what's going on here is this patch changed some of the file structure of Elden Ring, adding in 2 new references to maps that do not actually exist yet in the data of the game. This was first noticed by a Mr. Lance McDonald, link down below, and certainly check him out, and it's very, very curious. But that's not a huge amount to go on, at least to begin with, but it does start the hintings of, okay, are they preparing for new content, preparing for new maps, setting the foundation, the bedrock, as it were? Well, this rabbit hole doth go deeper. Our friend and veritable Souls legend, Zuli the Witch, had a little look too, and basically the IDs for the new maps are, well, M20 and M45, and we can use file IDs to kind of tell what it's supposed to be when it comes to the game. Now, this isn't a leak or anything like that, it's simply reading game files, which is of course completely fine and normal and expected, and it's generally very interesting what's actually going on here. For example, the overworld, the main areas like the lakes, like Limgrave, they tend to be M10 through M19, as is explained. So M20 tips over into what is likely or could be a legacy dungeon. That's very exciting, because obviously that's the meat of Elden Ring and Souls in general. Could it finally be the behemoth of a structure below the bestial sanctum? Maybe that will finally unlock and we'll get to see what lies deep below there, because it is a colossal creation embedded into the cliffside and we never really got to explore it, just the outside of it if you drop down to get the dagger. Or will it finally open up a new area of the map? Maybe the swirl in the center will be revealed, or somewhere off the coast. Maybe it will be an actual new entry to the landmass, and we teleport there somehow. That would be very, very curious, but a new legacy dungeon does seem to be at least on the cards. The M45 then is what I find even more fascinating, because that doesn't, well, reference anything that we know about. But I think we perhaps do know about it. So listen here, this is going to sound a little bit crazy and perhaps a little bit far-fetched, but I believe there is compelling evidence to suggest that the actual additions in 1.07 have given us a way to possibly foresee a future where a proper new mode is added to the game, because this doesn't reference anything existing, but it does Okay, fine, I'll slow this down a little bit. So, this M45 doesn't reference anything that currently exists, but I think it does exist. I think it is the Colosseums, the PvP arenas, or at least what should be PvP arenas around the world. They're everywhere, and indeed we have seen inside them. People have glitched their way in and explored them, and they're weirdly detailed, weirdly well made, weirdly functional, down to elevators to bring you into them. It's all modeled, all textured, and if this was never an area intended for use, well, you would certainly not waste resources and manpower on creating it. Now, maybe it was cut towards the end, or cut off for time saving, or they were always planning to come back to it, but it certainly is in too good of a state to be a complete waste. It just doesn't make sense. So what if this M45 is a reference to an incoming actual arena or Colosseum or PvP map, kind of like Dark Souls 1 had? That would be very, very sweet and a much welcome addition, an official structured queue into it, maybe competitive, maybe there's some systems tied to it, PvP mode, set in the Colosseums of the lands between. And what I think supports this just that little bit further is what was the major change in 1.07. a split of balance. They have now made it so they can and will adjust PvP balance separately to PvE balance. Now, why would they do that? The game's been out a long time, and there's a few outliers, but as a whole, PvP isn't bad. It's not like there's a huge uproar constantly of, please fix it, this one thing is so oppressive. There's outliers, but it's not terrible. So why would they do that? Unless they knew in the future there was going to be a dedicated PvP mode where the balance of PvP would be much more important, and therefore they would be making more frequent and larger changes, but don't want that constantly screwing with the single player PvE experience. Heyo, a Coliseum mode. So they add this patch that lets them balance PvP separately while setting the foundation for a new arena using the existing arenas that are already pretty much made with the file address M45. Boom!
My genius is... it's almost frightening.
I think that is compelling, and I think it is very exciting, and I think it is definitely worth considering, worth postulating upon, and worth, well, giving it a full-on good think, as it were. I would love to know what you guys think of this concept. Imminent DLC or an update in our future, perhaps a new legacy dungeon, and the opening of the PvP Coliseum's arenas, or there might not even be a PvP thing, it might be a PvE PvP thing, like the Jar Warriors in front of the Great Jar, or something along those lines, but the opening of these areas, and we've not had one yet, which is why it doesn't refer to anything that currently exists, or similar to something that currently exists. I think it's got legs, I really do, and I think the patch and the balance split supports it in a really meaningful way. So yes, I would love to know what your thoughts on my thoughts are, and I do love a proper good theory, especially when it really does feel like it's, you know, like the tip of your tongue, like it's just the pieces are there, the fitting, I can see the matrix. I might of course be completely wrong, but what is fact is these files added and shuffled around. Surely that can't be random or for nothing. Surely.
Don't call me Shirley.
Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, like if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more Elden Ring goodness. Consider supporting the future of this channel on Patreon down below. And until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.